Gonna rock it now. Gonna rock it now. By Jackson Aurelia. Jackson Aurelia. Gonna rock it now. Gonna rock it now. Rock it, Jackson Aurelia. T-Force.
Welcome to the rework of the T-Force. Now we going hard cause we bumping at the beat source. It's a 3-course dinner of dudes bringing the news and stats, interviews and casts from the pro scene. So fresh and so clean, like you're leaning with Nami in the bot lane. Keep it hot like brand, practicing his dot game. Give it to you easy like you're Resi in a bot game. Imagine Draven at prime time. Now ulti like LeBlanc can copy that 4 times, but manlier. Knock it up like now, fight planning a family-er. You gotta be tuned in like Sona on the ad wall. Get on the chat call. Can a podcast really be all that? Of course. How do 4 guys make a Triforce?
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 261 of the Trinity Force podcast. My name is Adaponophobia Cogswell, and I bring another question to you guys this week. Do you enjoy podcasts? Huh?
Do we?
Everybody, it's a question.
Yeah, I enjoy.
Who do you want to answer that question?
I want somebody else to say, I enjoy
I love podcasts.
Punchinello loves podcasting and podcasts. Does Daze?
I do.
And Chira.
Yeah, because I listen to podcasts probably 8 hours a day.
Well, if you want another podcast, you should go check us out at trinityforcenetwork.com/Patreon, because for $10 a month, we will give you a Champion Select podcast. The very first podcast features Irelia, and you can all download that for free right now on the Patreon. Patreon.com/T-Force Network as well works for that. You guys download that, listen to it, get an example of what you will get for $10 a month. Now, one of the ways that I want to talk about this Patreon real quick, because we spent a half an hour talking about it last time, and we're just going to quickly touch on Patreon and then move forward with our discussion, because it's going to be a continuation of discussion from Monday when we're talking about items. Well, I'm going to put Chira on the spot here because he was talking about the monetary aspect of it. Chira, do you remember those exact numbers that we were talking about?
For what numbers?
Well,
just
to give people an idea of what it's like to spend the $10 a month compared.
Okay, yeah. So it's like I was saying to you, because we were talking about a bunch of stuff, and I used this example last time. It's for the most part, it's less than a WoW subscription per month to get extra podcast content, and you're getting more than 36 hours worth of bonus podcast content per year, which is pretty good considering you're already getting around 200 hours plus of
for
content
free.
for free across all the shows on our network. I mean, that's like 6 to 8 hours of content per week. So like, if you listen to a podcast like I do at work while you're there, that's an entire day of work that you can listen to a show from our network, which is pretty solid. And hopefully we can continue to add more in the future. But yeah, I mean, it becomes one of those situations where, I mean, we're going to continue to produce the same amount of content we've always created for absolute free. But for individuals that want to help the network grow, it's a little incentive to be like, hey, throw a couple bucks our way. And, $10 a month's like going to see a movie, but you get more audio content over the course of that month. I mean, if you get 4 hours of audio content, that's still a better deal than
you arguably get more out of that that $10 than you would if you went and saw a movie anyway.
Yeah,
especially if it's a shit movie.
And you don't know who's sitting on them and who's got like greasy ass hair and their hair's you don't want to think about that.
Will you stop talking about Chira that way?
Yeah, my hair's beautiful. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, the other part of that too is like you don't even have to technically leave your house if you felt like downloading it. Like, you could, if you have a Wi-Fi connection or you just want to download it from your phone, you don't have to do anything. You just get free content that you can start and stop whenever you want. So I don't know.
That was kind of I wanted to hear the Chira rant here. Yeah, every little bit helps out, and one of the things you always hear with people who are running donation drives is that if every one of our listeners donated $1, we could probably all quit our jobs and work on this stuff full time.
Well, that's what I told you. Like way before, because Adam was like, I don't know if I want to do a Patreon. Blah blah blah.
No, I never said about Patreon. I think I said donations. That was like 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, way in the past. I'm like, if just shot in the dark. But if all of our listeners just donated $1 a month, we could do this full time.
Yeah.
And just do nothing but make content all the time, which would be pretty cool. But realistically, who knows what happens?
Yeah, I always roll my eyes at that one, but it's true. Like if every one of my listeners donated $1, we could all work pretty much full time on this, and we'd all be happy. So that's But with that said, we're already at $200 a month with that Patreon, and now we don't know how many people are going to stay. Spending that money, we don't know how that's going to fluctuate. But even sitting at $100 a month takes care of server costs, and that means we always will have the podcast going forward.
I was going to say, our website should be up all the time.
Yeah. So that's really awesome. If we make it to $500 a month and we continually can hit $5 a month, I'm going to purchase this content delivery network for us, which means everybody from Australia to United States to Russia to South America are going to have the same download and upload speeds for everything. We're going to use that more for also the community site as well, because like graphics and everything will go on there. So like everything should always load quickly for you, which is awesome. But that's we spent a half an hour on the Patreon last time. I really just wanted to touch on it one more time, because if you didn't get enough of it, I'm going to ram it down your throat until you donate. Give me your money. Anyway.
Wow.
No.
Shameless.
Well, Adam, that's extremely forward of you.
Yeah, hey, that's what we are, this podcast. If I was sitting at a bar, I would look at the guy right in the face and go, "You're paying for my beer."
We also have really cool guests coming on. I think we have a really cool one for the next one, so for the next Champion Select. So once we have
it's legit people that are going to be telling you how to play certain champions, what champions are strong in the current meta, what champions are strong but maybe you don't see them played all the time, whatever. Like,
okay, I'm going to make a promise right now too that we will have Chira to talk about Udyr within the next 3 months on that show.
Is that a promise?
I'm making a promise just because I know how much people love your Udyr, and Udyr is always a champion that seems to be good somehow, some way.
He's great in solo queue.
So somehow in the next like 3 or 4 months, we will definitely have you to jump back on to talk about Udyr, because I think it'll be a lot of fun to talk about.
Gonna be fun. I'm just waiting for a potential Olaf episode. If any,
there's like 130 champions or something or whatever now. There's 24 champions a year we can do.
I know, it's great.
But yeah, that's it. Thank you, DDRS. He says that I want to say congratulations, $200 on Patreon. We're very happy too. Thank you very much. So we're going to move right forward here, because it kind of went downhill real fast. And that's, we were talking about itemization on the last podcast, and we said that at the end of that podcast, we were going to continue that talk onto Wednesday. And this is probably the first time we've actually continued discussion, if it wasn't a patch, onto another episode. Well, we all jumped into what program called Slack this week, and we all started having a conversation about itemization. And we came to the conclusion that we don't like the word noob trap or trap. Because at any point in time, if you use that word, there's a negative connotation to it that people can use to defend buying an item for reasons. And then we also figured out that gold efficiency is another one of those where that people can
trick you.
People can use that to argue improperly. Go ahead.
People can also use the noob track argument to yell at other people, even if they build an item that has a niche quality, but they're actually justified in building it.
Right, and we don't want any of you to get yelled at in solo queue and be like, T4 said that's a noob item.
Right,
so
you might be playing a game
and
that. The stars could align for you to buy this item, then you're thinking to yourself, oh no, I shouldn't buy that, because you start second guessing yourself.
So we came up with niche items because, as like the term that we're going to use, because the reality of the whole situation is the reason why some people refer to them as noob traps or things like that isn't because necessarily like they're noob friendly or only people who are not familiar with the game buy them. The real reason is because they have some quality that makes them viable in certain situations, but people just don't understand what the item is, what the strengths are, and when you should use them and when you shouldn't use them. So the whole goal of this episode is to kind of convey to you what the strengths and weaknesses are of each of these items and why you don't see them very often, but they still exist in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because most of these items I'm looking at this list, there's a few here that you'd probably see more than others, or there's certain characters that would build them over other characters. But that's because, again, stars align. So we'll just kind of go from the beginning here because Dave's put a list together for us. I'm actually really surprised that Frozen Mallet isn't on here.
Yeah, why isn't that the top of the list here?
Because I figured that was just something he was just going to talk about. I didn't have to put it on
Yeah,
the doc.
Adam, we
That'd be an
figure
easy
out
one
of
to
all the
open with.
times that you've bitched about this, you probably have all the
He-
stats memorized.
How do people
He
not
didn't
know
even
by
get
now?
to the first item without mentioning it. I mean, I'm pretty
No.
sure it clearly didn't need to be
That's
on
the first
there.
thing. He opened this document, he started scrolling, where's Frozen Mallet?
I did
Where's-
actually.
Right, he was
That
just
the-
looking for that.
Literally the
You know
first thing I
what?
did.
I want to say that Frozen Mallet might be Adam's favorite item because he loves to
I
bitch
know,
about it.
right?
It probably is. Like, it was
He
funny.
loves to hate.
I built it the other day on Graves because I had to for Operation Supply Drop. There was a donation that came in.
Supply Drop?
Supply
Sorry.
Drop. Yeah. Can't talk. Supply Drop. That I had to build Frozen Mallet first, had him on Graves. And there was actually a few fights where it was kind of helpful because I was able to kite like a Renekton away from whatever. But I wasn't doing the damage I needed to do because I was like the last person alive and I couldn't blow up anybody in the early part of the team fight. So let's move into a problem with Frozen Mallet on just about anybody. And that's so if we're first going to start with the niche item, Frozen Mallet is that niche item where there's literally only one champion. Well, there's not literally only one, but there's only one champion in the game that'll ever likely build it, with 80 carries being a sixth item for them to potentially build it to kite. But if you have an item that takes 5 other items to get to, that's not a good item. Like, because no one else is going to ever build that as a first or second item. Like, that item is almost primarily used as a sixth item. So there's something wrong with it. And like Chira brought up last week, and as it's always been, Phage has been the item that has stopped Frozen Mallet from ever being good, because Phage has always sped you up or slowed or done whatever, and it's always cost cheaper. And it's always been cheaper than Frozen Mallet has been. So when we look at that item and what it does, it slows a single target. Well, there's other items for a similar cost that bring you those defensive stats, but don't give you extra attack, that you can use to build to get that you're building if you're a tank. It's more likely you're building Frozen Mallet if you're a tank or you want to get tankier, but you want to do damage. But you don't need to build it because there's other items that do what you should be doing in a team fight, and you shouldn't have to choose between doing damage and surviving. It's pretty much one or the other when you're a tank. You're either surviving and peeling, or you are, diving and killing.
Right.
Kind of the allure of Frozen Mallet for people that are getting into the game is the perma-slow aspect, or just the slow in general. Like, oh, look, I slow every time I attack. That's so good. When really, there's a lot of slows in this game. A lot of champions have abilities that slow.
They have
And
baked-in
especially
slows.
if you've got a character that has a slow on it, you should really focus on hitting that ability rather than buying an item to make up for that.
And there's a lot of characters and a lot of items that speed you up and make you faster so you can get in front of the other person, so you don't need to slow them because you are moving more quickly around the battlefield than the enemy is.
And what is it that you always say is that more often than not, when somebody buys a Frozen Mallet, the rest of their team is slowing their target anyways.
Yeah.
So the Frozen Mallet it really isn't doing anything.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it. Like, there's somebody on your team that has a slow, and you should use that as your target of opportunity. You should use that as an opportunity to either reposition yourself to get to the target of opportunity or to kite and kill the person who is slowed. Because, for example, Volibear has an AoE slow with a Z that's on short enough cooldown that you can use in between his roars to reposition yourself. And there's other characters. Pix has a slow on her Q, for example. Support does. Nami speeds you up with all her passive, so you don't need this slow. Phage speeds you up and steals, actually, and steals. Or Phage used to steal movement speed, now it just speeds you up.
Right.
Yeah, so Phage just speeds you up and allows you to reposition. There's just items that do that. So Frozen Mallet really becomes a trap because you're trying to make yourself tankier and do more damage. And like I said before, you have to decide what your role is in the game. You can't have your cake and eat it too, for the most part.
And also, it's just kind of worse now than it even used to be, just because there's no step items to get to it. It's just one big expensive item with a bunch of expensive components. And
Now,
there's
what is it?
There's nothing to build in the meantime.
It's Ruby Crystal, Giant's
Giant's
Belt,
Belt.
Pickaxe.
Right.
And, okay, so I'm at 80 carry. That was the worst part when I had to build it on Graves. Because I bought the pickaxe. I'm like, all right, I'm good. I can buy the pickaxe. I can go back to lane with a little AD. But now I have to spend the next 6 minutes sitting on, what is that, 400 life. Rather than 25 extra AD.
You gotta save a ton of gold and get HP. How's that damage looking?
It wasn't pretty. There was definitely that mid-game power spike where I wish I would have had the eye edge to be able to do damage.
Wah, wah.
Womp womp. So yeah, that's pretty much Frozen Mallet in a nutshell. If you ever wonder why my rant, why I hate it so much, is because everybody does what Frozen Mallet does better. And we can go ahead and move on to the next time. I'll let somebody else talk about like for Zz'Rot or Wit's End or Zephyr, whatever, whoever wants to jump into what. Floor is open.
Everyone all at one time.
It's all on you, Days.
All right. So one of the first ones that we chose was Zz'Rot Portal, and it's a fairly new item, and I'm pretty sure everyone was pretty excited about it when it first came out, just because it was such a new concept, and it seemed awesome. It seemed like something you get kind of in supporty roles and still feel like you're doing something. And for a while, everyone was building it, and everyone found out like the best places to put it. But there's a reason that you're not seeing it very much anymore. Part of it is that it gives you armor and magic resist, and it doesn't give you any health. And for anyone who's not really, we kind of went over this last episode, but effective health is a really important term for you to understand and to just use in your decision making. So when you have an item that has 60 armor and 60 magic resist and doesn't give you any health, then it is going to be less effective than if you have, say, the Randuin's. Most items in the game, if you have a resistance that comes with some sort of health, as in like Randuin's or Aegis or something like that, to balance each other out.
I just want to jump in here for a second, because each point of, or I should say, the more armor and magic resist you get, the more valuable each point of HP becomes.
Right.
And it's harder to take down that point of HP. So if you're stacking magic and armor resist, it only makes sense to build more HP because that HP becomes more valuable, and that's the essence.
And it's vice versa.
Essential health.
So exactly. So if you have a lot of health, then every point that you get in armor and magic resist means more, because that armor and magic resist is being applied to every point of health rather than you just buying more health. So anyways, effective health is really important. And when you only have armor and magic resist in an item, especially if you're picking it up on like a support champion where you have limited funds as it is, and this is a 2,800 gold item, you don't have a lot of options, and you're picking this up pretty late. So you have to get your sights done first, you have to get your boots first. Usually this isn't seen as a third item by any means. Like usually you're picking up that's something more team related. So by the time you spend all that gold, you really have that situation now where you've spent a lot of gold and you're trying to get this 2,800 item, and you don't have any health to balance out the resistances.
Yeah.
So there is that.
The items like this, where you're only getting resistances from it, like Thornmail is another one of these items where you get resistances plus some kind of passive that works off of people attacking you. Like that item, you go, wow, this item's awesome. But it's because you don't have the effective health to go along with it to be able to tank enough shots to make that passive worth your time. Same thing kind of goes for Zz'Rot. You have a ton of armor magic resist, but every shot is still doing quite a bit of damage to you because you don't have the health to tank more shots. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
GA is another item like this, but I think it doesn't really make our list just because of how powerful the passive is, and that's really why people are picking it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that GA is also picked on champions who it's a different situation.
Right.
Like, so this is picked on more supporty champions. GA is picked on champions that you need to survive that burst, and you need them to come back because they do a lot of damage, and they just naturally have a lot of gold to begin with.
It's built on champions that need a mulligan.
Right. And Thornmail is a great way to explain effective health, because you can have Thornmail and have 100 armor, but if you only have like 200 health and they hit you twice, then it doesn't matter how much armor you have because you're going to die, because you can only take 2 shots. And it did no damage to them because they hit you twice. Mm-hmm. That's one of the issues is Zz'Rot Portal. And then another one is that it's best used in lanes adjacent to where your team is. So you don't want to use it usually in the same lane where you are. So, because you want it to be pressuring the map while your team's pressuring somewhere else. Which means that usually if it's built on a support or a tanky jungler, that means that person isn't with your team, and they are the ones who take care of your team or initiate. So it makes it a really easy situation for you guys to get initiated on or something like that. The passive isn't great. I haven't heard anyone really rave about it. It doesn't make up for the lackluster
passive
stats that it has and things like that.
By the time you would pick up this passive, be able to use it, is you primarily use it in base when you are running past you're running past the 2 towers, you're running past your inhibs and your base towers. And I will say that it's kind of nice in lane if you can get it early, but you are sacrificing other other pieces of the puzzle or other pieces that you could use moving into mid game once your laning's over. Because a long time ago, before Righteous Glory was made, I built this on Shen, and not that I'm building Righteous Glory on Shen, but that's just the time frame that I was playing with Zz'Rot, and being able to move around the turret was nice because I was able to dodge skill shots whoever I was fighting against. Like I'm Shen, I was stuck against my turret. I built Zz'Rot for fun. That was nice, but that was such a niche time that would ever work where I was actually Shen and being pushed against my turret. That was the only time I've literally ever seen that passive work for me. But also speaking for Zz'Rot and to Righteous Glory, once Righteous Glory came out, that pretty much killed Zz'Rot completely because Zz'Rot works on anybody who has who either gains a ton of life on their own, passively gains life through abilities, or that they can gain a lot of life and reduce damage. I'm looking at Maokai. He can gain a lot of life back and reduce damage, so it worked really well on him. But you're now using him to engage with Righteous Glory, so you don't ever need to pick up the Zz'Rot because you're not split pushing.
Right.
So, you see all the corundums that you run into, the problems you run into this item, because people you'd want to build it on aren't doing what the item is designed to do.
Right. And just the active itself, having to place the actual the portals in the right place is really difficult. It's not even when you get banner and you can on your way to wherever you're going, you can go ahead and you can frank the tank up someone. This, you have to place it close enough that they reach the tower.
Yeah.
Or you have to also place it somewhere where they're not going to die. And if you buy it too early in the game, then people are just in lanes anyway, so they're just going to be killing your guys anyway. So it's a really tough thing to manage that properly, and there are some guides out there on it, but it's really situational, and you have to place them really far up, so it's really hard to join your team after.
Well, the travel time in itself to get to a spot to place it that's effective can be detrimental if during that time the enemy is able to engage on your team in a 4v5, or you have to go out of you have to leave and they can pick up, say you want to go throw it in top lane and you're on your way to do it, they can just go take dragon in the interim, or they can start it midway through and you're forced to make the decision of I either need to place this or meet up with the team, which it comes back to that whole idea of wasted time in games is just time that wasted time just hurts your ability to win because you need every moment.
Every second that you're not making gold, you're actively losing your game.
Mm-hmm.
I think you make a great point in this document, Days, in our item listing here about how situational this active actually is. Only tanky split that have a hard time taking towers is how you word it, which is exactly right. Think about that. You have a split pusher like Jax. He doesn't need this item. He does a ton of damage to towers. He can split push a lane very quickly. So you would need a split pusher like Maokai, I guess, who should probably be with his team anyways. Right, yeah, like a tanky champion that should be team fighting, but it for some reason has to split push.
If you took TP on Sion or Malphite or Maokai or something, and your team is going to go for an objective, and you're like, okay, let me push top. But then, of course, you don't have a ton of wave clear. You probably have Sunfire on them or whatever, but it's still... The biggest problem with them is once you get to tower, I don't know if anyone has tried to use a Malphite to take down a tower. It takes forever. So even if you split push, you're sitting there smacking the tower forever. So you can use it in that situation, but you have to make sure you're really good with TP to get back to your team, because on all of those champions that we just mentioned, there's such a big part of your team fight that if you get caught top without your team, or your team gets initiated on and you're not there, they're in a lot of trouble.
And to go along further with that TP point, let's say that the enemy 3-man ganks bot, everybody's kind of low, and you can instantly teleport down there to make a play. What is the likelihood that you're in a perfect situation to drop that Zz'Rot in a place that's going to help? And what is that Zz'Rot going to do for you when you actually get to that fight?
Yeah. Are they actually are they attacking you, or are they just running away? Are they does that passive of that tower movement actually help you? Because did you teleport on top of the tower? Sure, that tower movement helps you, but more likely you have an instant spell that gets to somebody quickly, or you're using something like Righteous Glory, which gives an active to your entire team, rather than just for you, which is the passive of the tower movement. So yeah, Chira's right. None of that works well.
Yeah, it just overall it just doesn't work well together for the champions that it's designed to work on. I guess it's just they're not fulfilling their role if they're building this item. It doesn't help them fulfill their role in any way, really.
Boom, done. Wits End, let's go.
All right. I want to talk about Wits End a bit because I do see a lot of people that like this item.
Dom loves
or
this
people
item.
that want to like this item. But I just have a really hard time seeing how it's useful. Right? So, first of all, Wits End, suboptimal build path. We've talked about this before. You have to build a recurve bow and sit on a recurve bow in order to make it.
And recurve
bow got that buff a couple patches ago for the 10 extra damage on auto attacks.
It's a little bit better.
I haven't seen Wits End run amok since then, so I really don't think it mattered that much. But I mean, so look at Wits End, the stats it gives you, right? And compare it to the other attack speed items in the game. And you have to figure out why you would build Wits End over any of those. Why would you build Wits End over Phantom Dancer? When Phantom Dancer gives you a lot more single target DPS. Or Blade of the Ruin King, which gives you sustained and the ability that active, the ability to kite people, the ability to do chunks of damage to high HP targets. What does Wits End do? It gives you magic resist.
And reduces magic resist.
On hit. So you build magic resist over time. Okay. So who's using that? That's always the question I come back to is...
Warwick!
Who is fighting for a long period of time?
Warwick!
That...
I'll keep yelling it until Punch is done. Warwick!
Okay, so he wants magic resist, right? But most magic damage comes in bursts.
Right.
So you kind of want an upfront magic resist rather than magic resist over time. So who are you building this on? Who are you building it against? Help me understand this item.
This is one of those items that's only, it's like Force Mallet where it's only really good on one person, and you can make an argument for Udyr with this item, but you'd rather just get a Trinity Force. So.
It used to be good on Skarner too, but again, it became one of those situations like a T-Force or a Blade of the Rune King are both better built. Yeah, they're
the reason
just better.
it makes it works for Warwick, and he's the only champion, like out of 130 or whatever number of fucking champions we have.
Organ says on hit none.
Whatever, on hit anybody. It's just because of the way Warwick's ultimate works. You are jumping on, smacking them a ton of times, and applying all the on hit effects. So you're doing a ton of damage with a unique basic attack, steal 42 bonus damage. So you're taking a ton of magic resist, doing a little bit of extra damage every time you smack somebody, and then you can Q them for a ton of chunk of damage. That is literally the only reason this item works.
And and in that same vein with Warwick, Blade of the Rune King, many times way better. Getting a Devour enchant, which when Devour came out was broken as hell and made Warwick broken as hell, way better than Wits End. Wouldn't really see you buying a Wits End before either of those two. And to be perfectly honest, once you had either of those items, didn't really need Wits End because your damage is already pretty solid, and then you can go straight tank, be unkillable, and hurt people.
Exactly. Bruisers don't really stack attack speed items. Right. Like you touched on this in the document days that this is kind of a second or third attack speed item that a bruiser would make, but they don't build multiple attack speed items. They just build that one Blade of the Ruin King or what have you, and then start tanking or start stacking tank stats.
Well, I think my favorite right here, and Days, well, I'm going to give you props. You did a really good job on this, even though it's not completely filled out.
It's a very solid.
Thank you.
Another good point that we just brought up here is that there are better MR options for bruisers, primarily being Hex Drinker. And while Maw of Malmortius isn't that great of an upgrade, Hex Drinker is still a fantastic item to sit on. So if I'm playing somebody who needs a magic resist, I'm looking at Wits End or Hex Drinker. But Hex Drinker gives me more bang for my buck faster than Wits End does because you gain a shield that blocks any incoming damage after you are, taking below 30% of your life. Mm-hmm. And having a passive that could allow you to have an extended trade is better than something that relies on you hitting the enemy to gain magic resist to potentially have them do less damage over a long period of time.
Or
so that Hex Drinker prevents burst while Wits End prevents long drawn out fights. But what kind of magic damage is having that long drawn out fight? Magic damage is generally burst damage.
Well, and you got to look at it this way too. We usually say that how many auto attacks, especially if you're a melee champion, how many melee autos are you going to actually get off on a person during a team fight? Because like
What did we say? 3?
Yeah, it's
roll
typically
threes.
3. That's 3 times. You gotta build up for the magic resist. So
15
congrats.
magic resist is gained and
Yeah.
lost.
You did it. You got to your magic resist. You did the little bit of bonus damage. Awesome. Let's just say instead I bought a Blade of the Rune King and Spirit Visage, which synergize together. One gives me effective health to go along with that magic resist, and it gives me bonus lifesteal because I'm getting more health back from the passive on the Spirit Visage and the lifesteal passives. Like, it becomes one of those situations where those 2 items together just way outclass this item by itself. And yeah, Wit's End might be cheaper, but you get a bigger benefit out of those other 2. So like, I used to really like this item, but that was way back when they had a bunch of other items in the game, and now that they've culled so many other items, I'm really surprised that they haven't removed this or at least changed it completely.
That's what I've been saying about Frozen Mallet for 3 seasons now.
But but especially after the recurve bow change, like that was primo
That's the
time for
perfect
them to be able
opportunity
to
for
do
them
it.
to touch on this item. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, again, it becomes one of those things. I'm still going to be a little salty that they ended up changing Black Cleaver before they changed Wit's End, and they messed with a piece of Wit's End that patch.
I want to bring up, because I've heard people ask about like building on an 80 carry, like, oh, but it has attack speed, it has a ton of attack speed, and like, what if I'm getting blown up by someone? But the thing is that most ADs go 4 offensive items, boots, and a defensive item. So if you're taking your defensive item and all you're having is Wit's End, it goes back to effective health, where it's just giving you MR and it's not giving you any health. And 2, it doesn't offer you any utility, which a lot of the other defensive items that ADs build have some sort of, especially when it comes to magic resist. You know, you have Banshees, you have QSS, there's like a lot of options there for you to help you so that you don't just disappear off the map. Whereas this Wit's End isn't going to do that. And if you take it and you replace this with the attack speed, it goes back to what Punch was saying, where it doesn't offer you anything else but attack speed. Every other attack speed item has AD, it has crit, it has lifesteal, it has some other aspect to it that helps you throughout the whole thing. So it's so situational. And the only really times that it's good with, because we try to come up with times that it would work so that we could balance out the reasons why it doesn't, is really Warwick is such a huge thing. And the only time that it would be even reliable, I mean, even reasonably reliant on other champions would be people like Jax or Aurelia if you needed a third MR item. Like if you were against, like, I don't even know, like a Rumble and some AP mid and Zz'Rot and bot and Corki, like if they had so much MR that you are a bruiser that can also benefit from the attack speed like Jax or Aurelia. And even then, there's arguments for other items.
I mean, there's arguments in that regard that you could just build more health and sort of be in the same boat, because buying health is also an effective way to keep from dying to pre-front-loaded burst, which is what most AP sort of champions do anyway.
Burst, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Rumble's sort of an outlier for that sort of thing, but it also becomes one of those situations like, unless Rumble gets crazy fed early, like an even build Jax or Aurelia should eventually hit a point where they probably should just be able to kill him in a 1v1 situation. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Jax, if you know what you're doing with him, you can just queue out of that sort of thing. So I don't like this item anymore, which is depressing. Hey buddy.
Are you drinking Anti-Hero?
Yes, I am.
Boom! Done. Thank you. All right, moving on.
We have lots more to go through.
Yeah, let's talk about Zephyr then, because Zephyr's
Someone
next
just
on the list.
mentioned Zephyr on Twitter this morning too, and we were talking about items that
Did they like it or not like it?
No, not at all. Well, they liked it, but they had no reason to ever build it.
Yeah, the problem is the build path with it. It's not. I mean, it's
the only time I've seen Zephyr recently is somebody who's playing like a goofy version of Udyr, and they end up getting it first buy just because they're so far ahead and they're screwing around with the move speed and all the extra attack speed you get. And a champion like Udyr who doesn't need extra damage necessarily because his abilities early are so overwhelming.
Excuse me. I like this item on Aurelia, but it's got a shitty build path. And that's primarily my problem with this item is the build path on it, because you have to build a stinger and you have to build a pickaxe. And I'm not really a fan of the item stinger because it's just a shitty recurve bow. I mean, it brings
Pretty much.
It's pretty much just. It's not even like a shitty version. It's just a shitty. It's just recurve bow, but with cooldown reduction rather than 10 damage on hit.
Hooray.
So you gain 40% attack speed and 10% cooldown reduction, which like somebody like Aurelia can use all of that. But you need to make your trades more worthwhile by picking up something like a Sheen or a Phage and going for a Trinity Force. But this is one of those items where I look at it and I see the big picture. I'm like 25 attack damage, 50% attack speed, 10% movement speed, 10% cooldown reduction, and tenacity. The entire item is got everything you could want in somebody like Aurelia, but the pieces that are built into it make it hard for you to use those items effectively at the point of games that you can afford to buy those items.
I think you really got to pay attention to I think you really have to pay attention to the tenacity, right? And the fact that it doesn't stack. And you've got a very popular tenacity item in Mercury Treads that most people are building anyways whenever they want that. If you really need the tenacity early on, you're probably building Merc Treads. And
it's much quicker to get
Zephyr,
to.
Right?
Much quicker to get to.
And then by that point, why would you need to build the Zephyr late game? Right? Because you already got the Merc Treads.
Like, again, the only other time is if you're playing an AD carry and there's a ton of people with like the ton of people with hard CC and you're way past that item buy point where you can sell your boots and pick up this item. And even still, like situations like that, GA might be completely better in that situation.
Yeah, even then, I don't like Zephyr. I usually take a second Phantom Dancer in that case.
Double Phantom Dancer, I've seen.
Because, so cooldown reduction, I just don't like it in general in ADC because there aren't a lot of marksmen that can put it to good use.
Utilize it.
I'm only getting cooldown reduction if it directly increases my damage output. And who would that be, right? Ezreal, Lucian, maybe Corki?
Maybe.
You know, there's not really a lot.
No,
the spellcasters.
because cooldown reduction doesn't reduce the time that missiles reload on Corki anymore, right? Didn't they remove that?
Yeah, I think you're right. So probably not. I mean, it's AD carries that use spells in between their auto attacks to do significant damage. So majority of the time, I really don't give a shit about cooldown reduction. And the tenacity, though nice, most of the time, as an AD carry, if you get hit by a big CC ability, you're dead whether or not you have the tenacity or not.
Uh-huh.
So you'll die within the duration of the CC.
And you're better off spending that money on Quicksilver Sash to instantly get out of that.
Get out of it,
CC.
right?
Yes.
Especially with an item that you can build with a Quicksilver Sash that lets you do more damage, which is kind of your job anyway.
I could see it. I have seen it built on a Vayne as like a 6 item if you're not going to go a more defensive item, because it doesn't have a ton of damage on it on its own. It's a lot of like the attack speed and the move speed and the cooldown reduction, all that. So you can use it to kind of get a little bit more in and out with her. The cooldown reduction is nice on her tumble and things like that. But again, it's not something you'd ever get early, because there's just again, it goes back to attack speed items where there's your like main 3 that are really good, and there's very little reason to vary from them.
Yeah, not really any reason to get anything that increases your attack speed other than that, like you just said, those items that you have.
Or a second Phantom Dancer.
So
it's so fucking good.
Because you could run more quickly.
You just crit more.
Yeah, I love critting. Woo! With my eye edge, doing 25% extra
I love
damage.
how the double like Phantom Dancer is the old school like season 2, early season 3. Like, I'm fed as shit playing an AD carry. How do I just end the game as quick as possible when I have all my other items? Like, screw it, throw away the boots. Let's get another Phantom Dancer and just kill everything.
If it wasn't for those pesky armor stackers, I'd get second Phantom Dancer so fast. So fast.
Oh, yeah. I think it was the other day I was playing AD carry and I started building some other crappy third item and I went, wait, what am I doing? Why am I not building Last Whisper? And it makes me kind of sad that AD carries have devolved in that. It's 2 items in Last Whisper. But that's a topic for another time in Riot's itemization.
Used to be able to get
that's
PD
the life.
Immediately after that rush IE back in the day. It was great.
Makes every game simple.
Wow, it must be so fun to play AD carry. Let's talk about Guinsoo's Rageblade. I miss Guinsoo. That dude went fucking nuts on Twitter one day, and then he's just gone. So a little bit of trivia for you all.
Disappeared.
Yeah, go look it up. Guinsoo's Rageblade, another one of those niche items that, if it's Wrecker, he can come in here and tell you why it's so fucking awesome on Kale and why you should build it all the time.
I was about to say, the old Kale.
Dude, he still builds it on Jungle Kale if he plays Jungle Kale. That dude loves this item.
She is one of the items that could technically... One of the champions that could technically build this. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's not really wrong-ish.
Yeah. Well, it's used primarily for hybrid champions. The hybrid champion that does both magic and physical damage. So the build path on this item is pickaxe and blasting wand. So you're sitting on two just
can't get much more hybrid than that.
Yeah, big items or step items or whatever you want to call them. They're always pickaxe and blasting wand seem to be the step item for either of AD or AP, and then it builds into Guinsoo's Rageblade, which is 40 ability power, 30 attack damage. The passive auto attacks and champion abilities grant plus 4% attack speed and 4% ability power for 8 seconds. So you're getting both every time you attack or use an ability. And then the passive is falling below 50% health, grants 20% attack speed, 10% lifesteal, and 10% spell vamp. So you have to find somebody who is either pumping out wicked spells while doing a lot of auto attacks in between, or somebody whose auto attacks are also doing spell damage. Hey, Kale is like the only champion in this game that can actually make use of this damn item.
Days, I like your note with the Jax and the Gunblade split push build, but like I don't think anybody has played Jax Gunblade Guinsoo split push.
Like I said, I even put on there it's not seen very often, but it is a thing that people have done. So like
forever ago, and I agree. It's something
people
people
stopped doing it when they made Blade the Ruin King.
That's exactly right, because you can get a Blade of the Rune King early, or a T-Force, or both of them, and then go full tank, and still do more damage than 80% of the other champions in this game.
That Gunblade active was really nice, just to slow somebody down.
Right.
But now Jax, this new item comes along, and Jax is like, so what do you do? No item. Well, I slow people down. Ooh, that's nice. What else do you do?
Right.
I give you attack speed. Oh
my god!
Yeah, I want
give you attack speed, shred tanks, never have to worry about a 1v1 situation.
This is one of those items where you have to be able to doing both types of damage, but you're also investing a lot of gold in the fact that you are going to get low but not die. Unlike Guardian Angel, where you can use that strategically to die and then pop back up in a team and wait for your cooldowns to do something again. Because there are some strategic uses to Guardian's Angel, like I just said, where you can wait for cooldowns because you can die early. This, you are counting on getting low enough that you'll be able to attack yourself back up to full life. So you're essentially being a drain tank.
Yeah, I think that's what I dislike most about this item is that second passive component for the low health part. Just
you have
because
to skirt death.
in order to make it maximum usefulness, you have to be at low health, and you never want to be at low health. So how are you supposed to play with this item? Are you supposed to try and get low health somewhere and then not die?
You shield yourself as Kale.
If this was pure physical damage, would Trinity rebuild this? Just because, ultimate, I'm at 1 HP, I'm not dying.
And now I'm back to full after, so I don't have to run away in the middle of my ultimate. Absolutely, he'd build it.
And you have to be really careful with this on squishy champions because burst is a very scary thing. And trying to get low but not too low is a very delicate situation where you could easily just die way too quickly or not have enough health to kind of make any of it worth it. I mean, I guess another thing with Kale that's nice is that you can get to like half health or just below half health and then shield yourself and then use the hell out of it and then hopefully stay alive a lot longer. But yeah, there are not a lot of hybrid champions in the game to begin with. And then to make it so specific in what it does and its abilities, and it's really only effective like once you have those stacks or once you're below the 50%, because the actual stats, the base stats themselves, are not very helpful. Like they're not very overwhelming in their own. It's not like, oh well, I got a ton of AP anyway, so like you can get that much AP or AD on other items that are going to be more efficient for you.
Asmodee's been talking a lot in chat, and bless his soul, he's doing his best to justify these items. He's coming up with all these weird builds. He's like, AP Trinity Force Rageblade! And he also mentions Blade of the Rune King, Gunblade, and Rageblade for Jax, which I guess technically would be viable, but the thing about Jax is, again, bruisers like him and Aurelia can just sit on Trinity Force and Blade of the Rune King and go straight tank. And that's all the damage they really need. They don't need to build more damage then. They can kill whoever they want, and then they just serve their team better by building tank and sponging more damage after that.
Right, well, and that's the thing with the Gunblade split push Tryndamere, which, like, I mean, and I guess the same thing. I mean, sorry, I meant Jax. But with the Gunblade split push Jax with the Rageblade, it just, you're setting yourself to one playstyle. There's only one thing you can do with it. And you have to play that, so you can't adjust your team. And it's a very selfish build to begin with, because you're essentially saying, I'm going to go out on the split push, and you guys better not die while I'm gone. And there aren't a lot of other items in this game that lock you into that playstyle or lock you into just one way to play. And this is one of them.
I also have a problem with items that are geared to one type of champion, and then there's not that many types of champions in the game. Like Rageblade, this is geared to that champion that does both the damage. Zephyr is geared to the champion who wants to have all of those stats plus be able to stay alive longer. Hurricanes, cater to anybody who can stay out long enough to do a ton of damage to to more than one target. But are you doing enough damage? Yeah, we can talk about that next.
It's not just that Rageblade caters to the hybrid champions, but most hybrid champions, even though they're hybrid, tend to favor slightly in one direction AD or AP. So like Akali is one of those champions. Hybrid champion, most people build her straight up assassin with AP.
Yeah, that's just because she can on attack speed.
And even with Kayle, you typically build. She has an AP build, and then she has an attack speed build.
She also has shred built into her kit.
Right, exactly. But with Kayle, you typically go one or the other. And like Rageblade, if you're going attack speed build, you don't build Rageblade on it. So you're going, now you have like one champion that uses the item half of the time.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great item to me. Let's only use half of it half the time. All right, well, let's move on to Runaan's Hurricane, because I touched on that for a moment. And we need to get to Zeke's Herald as well. And probably Essence Reaver before this is over. There's 3 items in about 15, 20 minutes to get it done. So let's push forward. Runaan's Hurricane. Right now, there's probably only one person in this entire game that's building Runaan's Hurricane, and that's Callista.
Callista, we're looking at you.
Yep.
And that's because she has a passive on one of her abilities that allows her to do more damage to people because she's stacking bolts that either provide utility when it's used with a slow, or are going to execute essentially through having so many bolts stacked. And
it resets when you kill something. So if she's got a random stack on a creep, and she's also stacked it on a champion for harassment, she can activate her rend, slow the champion, kill the creep, and then it's back up again.
And now she's jumping onto you because she's moving so quickly toward you to do it. And Runaan's Hurricane, when I first saw this, I thought it was going to be like this awesome item, like all the AD carries were wanted. Oh my god, I can do AoE damage in a team fight. But the fact of the matter is, you are, as an AD carry, you are moving around, but you're not moving around as much. Like, Callista moves around the most out of any AD carry. She's everywhere in a team fight. Anybody else who uses it, you are, I'm not going to say stationary, but you are only moving on a few degrees of the axis, up and down and back and forth. It's kind of like you're moving in a small circle. There's really not much area you can move in, right? Punch. Am I explaining that correctly?
Right. I'm trying to see where you're going with this stuff.
I'm really saying that if you are fighting, let's say you can only move, 5 degrees. We'll say 5 degrees left and right and 5 degrees forward and back because you're making a T. How many champions are going to walk into that radius of that 5 degrees that you can walk around? Maybe one, maybe two, probably two at the most. You're never going to use that full Runaans to hit all 3 people, as well as you're not going to get the maximum damage out of it because it's only doing, 10 extra damage on hit?
Yes. Yeah, my problem with Runaan's when it came out was always that it kind of differs from what AD carry is functionally supposed to do, which is kill a single target as fast as possible. And Runaan's doesn't really help that. It's trying to let you do more AoE damage. As an AD carry, I don't really care about AoE. I want to kill the single person I'm targeting. I want to kill the single structure the objective, dragon or baron. I want to kill that thing. Killing multiple things at the same time, I can't really do. And Runaan's doesn't really enable me to do that either. I'm doing reduced damage to 2 additional targets.
Well, and when it first came out, everyone was so excited for like Twitch or Varus or like all these people that had some sort of tag on them where then you use an ability and like it does a lot more damage. Kind of like Callista does with Ren, but it helps Callista on multiple levels. Whereas with Twitch and with Varus, like you get it like a 6 item if you don't need GA or anything like that. But people were getting this early because ideally, like when you think about it in your head, it's one of those things that like that sounds great. I can get more stacks on people, but the problem is that like Punch just said, you're still doing less damage because it doesn't offer AD, it doesn't offer crit, it doesn't offer any of those stats that an AD needs to actually do damage. It has a suboptimal build path, and it's kind of like when we were talking about Ardent Censer when it came out. Like if you have a lot of attack speed and you don't have any AD or crit, you're just doing no damage faster than you were before.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you also have to... We touched on this with Wit's End. You have to compare Runaan's Hurricane to other attack speed items. Runaan's just gives you attack speed. Or again, Phantom Dancer gives you attack speed and crit. Crit is good.
And the only other reason it helps Callista is just because it helps her with moving. So she gets a bonus benefit out of the attack speed.
Yeah, the more attacks you get off, the more you can move around.
Yep.
In a fight.
So I mean, it effectively takes the place of, hey, you're spreading your Ren, so you're passive, and you're basically building super boots.
And there are a lot of AD carries that could use this. I mean, Ashe is kind of the newest example where her volley, or not volley, what is it called? Her Q, she stacks focus, whatever it's called. I mean, that works off of Runaan's. Graves with his dash, those extra attacks further reduce the cooldown when he auto attacks. Caitlyn can further stack her headshot damage, and then the Twitch poison. But I mean, those are all luxury items.
Right. It's if you're so far
luxury
ahead.
Stats, really.
Right.
I mean, it's only something you would get as a 6th item.
Right. And if you're sure you're not going to die, like if your team's far enough ahead that you are confident that you don't need a GA, you don't need a Mercurial Scimitar, you don't need anything QSS, because you can't, like Adam said earlier about something else, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't just buy everything, as much as that sounds amazing. You have to decide what to sacrifice. And I've seen people decide to go all out, just completely offensive, and then near the end of the game they die, and it's it, because their team was so much counting on them, and all it takes is like one step out of position, especially as an AD carry with no resistances or any defense. You blow up so fast, so it's a really huge risk to go ahead and to build something like that 6th item.
And even if you can get another offensive item for your 6th item, again, I'm looking to do the most damage as possible. So going back to that 2nd Phantom Dancer. The nice to haves, the reduced cooldown and Graves dash or Caitlyn headshot. All right, great. That doesn't increase my damage as much as the 2nd Phantom Dancer would. That's all. That's at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for. More damage. I want to kill people faster. If I can kill people in one auto attack, then I'm happy. Any more than one auto attack, I'm not happy.
Again, it goes back to how quickly are you going to die. Like AD carries late game, if someone has a gap closer, you could die. You might only have a chance to get a few auto attacks off.
Yep.
Better make them count.
Right.
Well, let's talk about Zeke's Herald and try to fit Essence Reaver and Nashor's Tooth in here as well.
Right.
It looks like
all right.
be able to.
The only time I can rationalize Zeke's is if your team just messed up and picked like a full AD comp
with a lot of attack damage,
speed,
like auto attack reliant champions, because burst, like the AD casters don't benefit as much from it as the auto attack reliant champions do.
And then it comes down to who's building it. Because the immediate answer is support, but then it comes down to, well, support really doesn't benefit from the step items that they're buying to get
the Vampiric Scepter.
Oh boy, that Braum Vampiric Scepter lifesteal.
not only do they not really benefit from the step items, they don't necessarily benefit themselves from the final item.
Yeah.
Because you have AD, which, I mean, okay, if you go Leona, then you usually get AD marks, but like you're not building AD on Leona. Or if you're playing Thresh, you get AD marks. But again, it's just not something that you look to build. And late game, that's for like harassing in lane. Late game, you're not frontlining as Thresh trying to smack the enemy team. And, you know, so you don't benefit from the AD. You don't really benefit from the lifesteal, again, because you're trying to protect somebody else. You're not you're not up there auto attacking people. And the CDR on, I don't know if anyone has ever bought a 20% CDR item on a support or like a jungle champion, but it's like nerve-wracking because then you're like, oh my god, I have 3 other items I have to build and they all have CDR.
CDR. Yep.
So what do I do? Like, do I not buy this item? Like, or do I just buy it and then my CDR is useless and then it's less effective? So
Yes.
like it does like put you in a situation where now you have to make decisions and you might lose some efficiency on an item that is already not efficient for you personally. So it really is so dependent on like having a comp, like your team comp, where you're so auto attack and AD reliant that it's going to benefit your team.
See, I don't have a problem with an item giving an aura that you can't use because I like the idea of a support supporting the team and giving the team a ton of stats. But from a playability standpoint, it doesn't make sense because you're seeing no benefit out of it other than the passive stats of CDR and health. So it makes it no fun for you to build that because you get nothing out of it. You have to be very selfless to build an item like
even if that's the case, which is fine, you need to be in team fights for this to happen. So if you are ever like caught out or you have one person near you, it's like it's not nearly as effective because you're not making use out of it. So it's one of those things where you're like, you really have to, your team has to be looking to team fight for you to get the most use out of it. And you can't get it too early because if you get it too early or you start on it too early, then you're losing, like those step items offer you absolutely no presence at all in that mid game or that early game or mid game. So you have to like push it off till later on. And again, when you're a support and you have limited funds, pushing off an item like that's 2,500 gold. You know, what are you buying before that? And when are you going to get to this item? And how long are you going to be holding onto a Vamp Scepter? So it's a good item when the situation is right. But you have to have a certain situation for it to be good. I personally don't think it's terrible on like some top champions either if they can really take advantage of like some of the AD and lifesteal on it. Like if you had a Renekton.
Yeah, but you don't get the aura, do you? Because it's nearby allied champions. Or does that add
You get it also. Yeah, you get it also.
It's additive to you
I
as
don't
well.
think there's a single aura that you don't also get.
I was going to say, I didn't think that you wouldn't get the aura, but I wanted to make sure. Because I'm sure.
Yeah.
Man, that would make this item super shitty.
Yeah, right? They're like, well, you're not going to use it anyway. We won't bother giving it to you. But yeah,
it's only moderately good for your team, and it doesn't help you at all.
So you're like super fed on Jax, and you don't want to get more ahead. You just want to help your team get more ahead.
That's right.
You're a selfless player.
Exactly.
Said no Jax player that's ever played.
right.
You picked Jax because you care about the team.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean, if you
picked-
have, this is a huge, and the other thing is it doesn't give you like a huge power spike even when you buy it, but like it gives your team a huge power spike when you team fight if you have an all AD team. So again, it's just
you're
a
in
frame
range to
of
use
mind.
it.
Right, it's a really big frame of mind type item, and it's incredibly dependent on your comp. So
I've been playing Zinzao top lane. Dej, you need to build this item for me. I need more lifesteal.
yeah, just that. We're gonna have
So
like
again-
it'll be you Zinzao top, and then
Can
we'll
we
have
do
like
it? Can we make it prop up Adam team?
Zz'Rot bot. We'll just
See-
have like all AP, and then you, and I'll build it for you anyway.
Yes!
of course, Adam says that because again, it turns around to, yeah, can we just do whatever so that my time playing this game
Right.
is the most fun out of everybody's? Because fuck everybody else.
Exactly. Fuck you all. This is my time.
You know what? You know what? We're going to do this tonight. You know why? Because if we do this tonight, and then he'll forget about ranking, and he's going to decay again.
Yes.
What are you talking about? God, no. I'm going to play one tomorrow. I have to come home and play one tomorrow so I don't fucking decay again. Because that's bullshit. It's a load of horse shit.
So, all right. So, for context, for people that don't know what's going on, probably around 2:30 this afternoon, maybe 3 o'clock. Don't really remember at this point. I get a text from Adam that says, what the fuck, Riot? I lost 100. Wait, no, it was
Yeah, I
what
lost
the fuck,
100
Riot?
LP.
You lose LP every week that you don't play, and I'm like, what? Is this a new change or what? And he's like, no, every week that you don't play ranked after 28 days, you start to decay. And I'm like, yeah, been like that a real.
Yeah, I think we all
But
knew
he didn't
that.
tell anyone that part at first. He just made it sound like he was losing
Yeah.
Elo every single
no!
week that he wasn't playing.
No, that's
And I was
not what I
like-
said.
It's a
That's not what
conspiracy.
he made it sound like.
It's horse shit. I'm telling you, it's fucking horse shit that I'm losing LP every week that I can't play. I'm a busy fucking man. I ain't got time to play your goddamn ranked, Rito.
I texted him back. I'm like, wah, I play other types of league games, but haven't played one ranked in 28 plus days. And I'm mad that I deranked.
Right.
But in my defense, I did text you before you even said that. I said I realize I have no
No
right
point,
for
no reason to be
arguing,
mad.
no
Right.
reason to be mad, and no reason to actually yell
I'm
about this.
gonna
But
be mad
fuck it, I
anyway.
want to yell about something, so I'm gonna yell about it. You were like, "Wah." God damn it! All right, let's finish this up by talking about Essence Reaver because that's our favorite item on this show, and we got in a very big argument about it like 60 episodes ago. And it was a lot of fun.
Hey, remember when we thought Essence Reaver could potentially be good, and then it turned out to not be good at all?
Yeah.
Essentially,
All right,
what it comes
you-
down to is power spikes because it costs 3,000 gold. Is that what it is? Right?
2,800?
Is it? No. It's 3,000 because
3,000 exactly?
3,200.
there it
wow.
is.
All right.
Jeez.
All right. And I also want to say, Days brought up a very good point about this on our nice new program Slack that we've been using. Yeah, Essence Reaver's kind of the poster child for doesn't really matter how gold efficient you are, this item's not good.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, you know what's funny about it is because it costs 3,200 gold total to build, but Infinity Edge costs 3,800 gold more. So you need to, if you get this item before the enemy finishes Infinity Edge, you have 600 gold worth of time, whatever time that may be. We're talking probably, what is it, 3 minutes? You can make 100 gold a minute, or is there more? I'm looking
We
at
can
Punch.
say, I think 3 minutes is pretty safe.
Yeah, so you have about 3 minutes worth of time where you need to make this item really fucking worth your time. And you can throw all the pro fucking stats you want at me and people building it, because I know TDK built this a couple times on people, but in a realistic solo queue game, nobody's going to take that 3 minutes or 5 minutes worth of time and make it count toward the end of the game. Like, they're not going to push down 3 turrets or get a ton of kills. Like, realistically, the enemy is going to finish Infinity Edge and get a larger power spike than the Essence Reaver, whatever you are, has.
The TLDR of that is with an item that you specifically need that short of a window with, why are you pigeonholing yourself into having to do something in that window when there's other items that could potentially be more beneficial outside that window or almost as good?
And I think the reason we're talking about building it first is because that's when you get to maximize its passive, right? I mean, that's really when you want the mana back is early game-ish, early mid-game-ish. That's when you want the mana. It's always been my opinion that Essence Reaver would be better, or I guess Essence Reaver, yeah. Let me start that over. Essence Reaver would be better, not as an expensive item, but kind of like a smaller mid-game item that builds into something better. Obviously with less AD. But so long as it has the mana component to it. The mana, something that gives you mana back during the laning phase. That's when I want mana, is during the laning phase.
Yeah.
If it was an item that gave me AD and mana, like Ezreal builds with tier into, whatchamacallit.
So if it was like a
Mana
1,000
Moon?
gold vampiric scepter type of thing that gave you...
It gives you sustain. That's where you want this item for, sustain. Sustain health, sustain mana in the lane.
See, at that point,
But
you have to like change how vampiric
You have to
scepter
build
works
the
or have some
entire
kind of
3,200
weird-
gold item in order to get that sustain for this. And laning phase is pretty much over at that point anyways. So who cares?
I think...
And this
Go ahead.
becomes harder and harder to use the later the game gets, because team fights become more and more volatile. So the chance of you either needing that mana back in the time that you're fighting, because most ADs who attack reliant, not the AD casters, but like even the AD casters, like you still have to auto attack, and most of the AD casters, your damage is front loaded. So if you're talking about someone like Graves or Varus or something like that, like your damage comes out pretty quickly, and you don't have a ton of time in a team fight to use multiple abilities. So usually when you're running out of mana, it's in your laning phase or something like that. So to try to sustain through your like all of your mana in the middle of a team fight is kind of unreasonable. Like you'd kind of have to, like, I don't know, have blown your mana doing golems or something and stop by race and try to get it back or something. I don't, but it's just not nearly as efficient because a lot of those bursty AD caster type champions try to front load their damage early and they try to get burst through the fight. And you don't. It's not like you go through like 5 rounds of 5 rounds of spells every time if you're on like Varus or Cork or someone. I mean, I don't play ADs a lot, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of how that works, right, Punch?
Yes, exactly. And again, whenever I'm looking at an item that has a specific component to it, in this case, lifesteal, I compare it to my other options.
Right.
In this case, that would be Bloodthirster or Blade of the Ruin King. Bloodthirster is the easier comparison because they both build out of BF Sword. So if I want lifesteal, and I want a lifesteal item, I can get this Essence Reaver, which gives me 10% lifesteal and some mana back on hit and cooldown reduction. I already talked about cooldown reduction. You know, that most of the time that doesn't really help me do more damage. And the mana back, I really don't care about that mid-game or late game because I'm not really running out of mana. Then I look at Bloodthirster. Gives me a shield, which can help me survive burst early on, and it gives me twice as much lifesteal. Well, if I'm buying a lifesteal anyways, then I want more lifesteal as opposed to less lifesteal. And that's the whole purpose of getting the item. So, in the vast majority of the time, I'm leaning towards the Bloodthirster as opposed to the Essence Reaver. Reddit brings up Reddit brings up over and over again, like their dream change to Essence Reaver would be armor penetration.
Yep.
That would be very interesting to me. I'd also be interested to hear your thoughts on that. I think that'd be nice, and they say armor penetration over the cooldown reduction. That would obviously be nice because you're directly doing more damage. Clearly, it's easier to see how armor penetration helps your damage over cooldown reduction, and it's nice for spellcasters because armor penetration applies to your physical spells. Abilities. So I could see that definitely being a more enticing item choice for casters. Would you guys agree with that?
I could see it being cool.
I would. I still think that I still think that restoring the mana late game is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But that could just be me, and I don't play a ton of ADs. And when I did, I played AD casters, but that was a while ago. So I just imagine that, like the later in the game you get, the less opportunity you have to spam those spells and things like that.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean,
so even if the armor,
go ahead.
Even if the armor penetration is great, like I agree that armor penetration inside would make it more. You'd probably want to pick it up. I don't think it'd give you as big of a spike as Infinity Edge would,
sure.
But it would be more enticing to pick up on some champions that can weave those spells and get more damage off because they're kiting or whatever it may be. But really, I think the item comes down to what we talked about earlier in that, like, Vampiric, they need an option from Vampiric Scepter or some kind of item that gives lifesteal and like that unique passive or cooldown reduction or something that's like a step item. The only way to make this item good is if the first step, the first 800 gold is better than a Vampiric Scepter.
Or just the AD caster equivalent of it. So instead of getting Vamp Scepter, if you can go back and you can get the mana regen or whatever, then that might be an option too, because at least you benefit from it.
It'd have to be mana regen and attack damage to make it worthwhile, because you can get mana regen
but I meant
tier.
like build out of this long sword or whatever into instead of like a Vamp Scepter into an item where you can get the restore from the mana. Then it might be worth it because then you can take advantage of that and you can do a lot more poking. I know that's kind of like a gate for AD casters in lane, is like if you run out of mana, you're kind of not nearly as useful as the other AD that's more auto attack reliant.
Right.
So that would be helpful because then you would have, so you get it at like, I don't know, like 6 minutes instead of 12 minutes or something like that. But like 3,200 gold is a long time to wait for that one passive that you're only going to use for a few minutes while you're lane. And then it's going to become significantly less effective. So I feel like that's way too long to wait for a passive like that.
External in chat brings up he says, Essence Reaver I can only see being used on ADCs like Jinx, where auto attacks drain mana. But again, I'm comparing Essence Reaver to Bloodthirster. On Jinx, I want the additional lifesteal, and I want that shield. The mana, I don't really care about that much. I guess you could run out of mana late game. That would be that means a lot of rocket auto attacks, which you probably don't want to be doing. And the cooldown reduction, you're really not using very much at all. And Jinx doesn't use her spells to do damage. She uses her spells to block people out and to create an opportunity for herself to attack.
And a lot of times she uses that Q in order to get the attack speed on her minigun. So it's not like a lot of Jinxes don't just spam the rocket either.
Right. I mean, ideally you want to use the minigun. And you're only using rocket when you've got full stacks and or you need to stay farther back to be safe.
Right. So it's just, I don't know. I've seen people be successful on it on people like I've seen a couple people be successful with it on like Pantheon, and things like that. I don't know.
But can you imagine Pantheon with Essence Reaver and armor penetration?
Armor pen would be
so
amazing.
much better.
It would get way better.
Yep.
But I think again, it would be better on someone like that than it would be on someone in the bot lane.
Well, could you imagine on somebody like that, like we said before, that you could use it in lane, that you could get it early enough that the laning phase lasted long enough that you could use it for the sustain. That's what it's made for. Like Punch goes back.
It's really got those two problems, I guess.
Yeah, it's more than just armor pen or lifesteal or whatever it is on it. It's that at the time that you want to use it, everybody's brought this up. You can't use it during the time you want to use it effectively because you don't have the item. That laning phase doesn't last long enough.
And we had no notes for this item in our document, but somebody typed out this item is butts. I think that's a good description.
I think
that's pretty much all the notes we need for this item.
That was straight up me.
Yeah.
I know a Cheera message when I see one, and that item is butts. So
Can I really quick? I know we're running late. Can I have 5 seconds to go over Ardent Censer because a lot of people messaged me about it. Ardent Censer. Everyone was really excited when it came out. I was really excited about it with Sona. All Dom talked about it was on Alistar. The problem is that if you get it early, which people tended to do on it, again, it's one of those situations where you're giving your AD attack speed before they have damage, so you're just doing no damage early. And by the time you get into mid-game and that sort of thing, then you're looking to get team-reliant items that are more related to giving them resistances and things like that. And aren't as reliant or aren't giving you as much of the ADP, which is something that you get off of the Ardent Censer, which is more for when you're laning, you want the AP to do a little bit more damage and stuff like that. So you just have to be really careful because this is one of those items that you can get as a 6th item on a support. But if you get it too early, it doesn't do anything. And if you get it mid game, then you're giving people attack speed, but you're not giving them all of the other things that you would with an Aegis or a Locket or any of those other support items that you would be getting. So just be really careful with it because it's not nearly as enticing as it looks to be.
I think 6th item support is pretty telling about how useful this item really is.
Right. And when you buy it, it's fun. It's absolutely fun. And it's also more, it depends on what champion you are. If you get to choose, if you're Sona or Alistar and you're shielding everybody, then it's going to be more efficient. And it's going to be more efficient if you have a heavy AD team that's auto attack reliant. It's another one of those things. But if you're going to play Janna and you have to shield someone because they're low health and they happen to be an AP, well, then it just did nothing for you. Or if you're Karma and you have to shield someone and get them out of the way, well, okay, it just did nothing for you. So you just have to be really selective on when you use it and what you're using it for and things like that.
Not only did it do nothing, but it also the person getting it put on them doesn't realize that they have that extra attack speed, so they don't know to go in because there is no cue, there is no giant flashing light over your head that yells, "I have attack speed." It's
you have to tell people if you have it. But if you look at the stats, it's 40 AP, 100 base mana regen. The 10% cooldown reduction is kind of because you get it on everything, on every support item, cooldown reduction. But the base mana regen and the ability power are for drawn out trades, which is generally in lane. So it looks like it would be a great laning item, but it doesn't do anything for you in lane. So yeah, just it's not a great item, guys. I know a lot of people ask about it, but especially when I'm streaming and playing Sona. But yep, there are just better items.
Poor Ardent Censer.
I know. I was so excited about it.
I was so excited about it.
I was not excited about it.
Fuck you, Pone.
Why is like all this podcast is made me think is, man, there's a bunch of shitty items. It's so depressing.
Well, I like so everyone was excited when they came out with like all the new AD items. Like what was it, season 3, I guess, or season. Like it was so exciting because everyone's like, "Oh, we're gonna have all these different options. We can have all these different build paths." And then somebody finds the optimal build path,
one.
and
That
then nobody
min-maxing.
moves. Exactly. And you have to, like, that's how you play the game. That's how you win.
Numbers are a bitch.
Yeah,
Well,
it's very difficult.
It's not even that numbers are a bitch. It's more of like that fun in certain opportunities doesn't equal or it doesn't counter people's want to just win at all costs.
Winning is fun.
The other thing, and the reason bot lane gets fucked over with all of these changes, like every time there's a new ADC item or a new support item, it gets like nerfed to the ground, and then you go back to like the same items, is because those items can be taken and they can be put in mid lane, they can be put in top lane, they can be put in the jungle, and then all of a sudden these people are way more, they're way more powerful than they should be. I mean, look at freaking what was the original shield thing, the relic shield, when it came out in bot lane. Like,
It was so much
like,
fun.
and then it was taken in top lane because at the time you didn't. I mean, it was just all over the place. Like stuff was just crazy. And anytime they come up with like these cool build paths for bot lane, especially, they're taken everywhere else. And it's the same thing as like when the new mid laners come out. The first thing that happens is a new mid laner is shoved in bot to see if it'll work as a support. So it's like the same thing. And that's part of it, is that, and the ingenuity is great and people experimenting is great. But when you do that and you find those like things that can be exploited, then they have to be corrected. And then you get pigeonholed into certain build paths or certain items or certain roles.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up everything with this entire podcast while we're even talking about it, because we see a lot of you guys build these items or try to build these items as you're moving up, and we just wanted to give you
we just want to pigeonhole you into certain items. That's what we want to do.
We're trying to give you the
we want a cookie cut
this game.
We don't actually want to do that. Just kidding.
What I really hope this did for everybody, and like I get a lot of people that come to me and they're talking about like, and they like theory crafting and they're like trying new things and like doing new things. But a lot of like starting out theory crafting is taking things that either are used well or aren't used well, and you dissect them to figure out why they are or why they aren't. And then when you have it down pat, where you can go, okay, I understand these concepts, I know why this works and why this doesn't, I understand, then you can apply that to new things or new ideas, and then you can dissect your own ideas and figure out if they're going to be successful or if, you know, they have weaknesses. And that's
thank you for ending on that note, Jen. We don't want to scare people off of these items per se. We just want to make sure people understand when they can be used or why they can be used. We want people to have a reason for building them. If you know for a fact that, yes, I can put Wit's End to use this game and it'll be great, then go.
And you're probably playing Warwick.
You're probably playing Warwick. Yeah. But I mean, we don't. Yeah, yeah, okay, maybe a lot of these items are next to useless because there's only one case out of 100 which they can be used. But if that case arises, don't be afraid to build it. Be mindful of when these opportunities arise and think outside the box about how you could use them. Did you say that?
Yeah, you took words out of my mouth. Have a reason. Always have a reason for everything you do, and be able to justify your reason, but then also be able to listen to why your reason may be wrong. Because there's somebody always out there that knows more than you do. We're not the end all be all. But sorry, Horse Doctor. I just want to say one thing, Horse Doctor and Bao, you're wrong. That's all I've got. Okay, you're wrong. That's those guys.
You're really good, but you're wrong.
But you're wrong. Okay. Yeah, I think that's gonna end the podcast. We went quite a bit over, but for good measure, for good reason, and we didn't even get through all the niche items. We probably won't touch back on them either. Because we're not here Monday. And Wednesday we have Hazel on, which I thought I told everybody. Hazel, the guy who did the ranked 5 stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's going to be coming out on Wednesday. Maybe. Actually, I take that back because he's... I forgot he was supposed to come on Wednesday, but we might be having to do him on a Saturday because he's 6 hours ahead of us or something crazy. It's like 2
Time zones.
when it's like 8 p.m. So yeah, it's like 6 hours ahead. Time zones are a bitch. So that's it. That's episode number 261. Did I do the thing? I think it's 262, but the overlay says 261. So that's episode 262 of the Trinity Force podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening to us. Please go to our Patreon, patreon.com/TForce Network. We will see you all on Wednesday.
See ya.
Later.
Have a good night.